This is a Bulldog Radio podcast.
It's the MVSP Season 3, Episode 46. I'm Joseph Nagy. Along, as always, joining me across the table, Brandon Worth. Brandon, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. I mean, the fact that we both got our schoolwork done, a whole weekend ahead.
Dude,
good
I got
times.
a 3-day weekend coming up. We got hockey games coming up. We got to cover tennis matches coming up, too. But before we get into all that stuff, we got a great interview with Connor Fedorek, a defenseman on the Ferris State Hockey team.
Whoop, whoop.
So without further ado, let's swing it on over into the interview.
Joining us now in studio, Ferris State hockey player Connor Fedorek is with us. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Connor, it's great to have you here, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know Red Out's coming up, and you guys are getting ready for practice. I know in the elevator you're talking about Michigan Tech just showed up, so going to get ready for a great couple games this weekend. But to get into the first question, although home ice is out of play in the playoffs is out of reach, what's been the approach for the team for these next 2 weekends? You're going to be playing Michigan Tech and Northern, two pretty tough teams to get ready for the postseason.
Yeah, right now we're kind of just looking at Michigan Tech because we got to take it one game at a time. But once we get that game under our belt and we get our momentum back, we're going to keep that going and hopefully ride into playoffs with it.
For sure.
Yeah, and we've noticed some big improvements this year. Obviously, the win column everybody knows about is a big improvement. But what are the things that you guys have seen, especially from this year, as opposed to maybe not having the same level from last year?
I think I would say our team chemistry this year, it's a lot deeper than what it was in the past years, and you die for one another out there. So it's kind of like you have that connection with everyone. You do whatever you can, and we just look out for one another out there on the ice, and it kind of helps with our overall play as well.
Yeah, the brotherhood, that's a big thing. And especially with the CCHA and stuff, it's home to a lot of great teams. I mean, Minnesota State, Bemidji, a lot of teams that you guys have been playing against. But it's also home to a lot of great student sections. So in your opinion, what's kind of the school that is the toughest to play at? And I mean, it doesn't have to be CCHA either. Like, what's kind of the one that the student section gets a little bit ruthless?
Yeah, one of the ones would be Western Michigan. That was my first actual away game that I played in, and it was just absolutely electric in there.
For sure.
You couldn't even hear yourself think when you were going out there for a shift, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Any in the CCHA that kind of pick it up at all?
Honestly, Michigan Tech's up there. If you see on their away games, you're going to see a lot of their fans in our stands tonight. They travel with the team, and they care a lot for hockey and the team, and it's nice to see that when you go there, and they have a nice band playing. They do their little walkout song and everything, so it's kind of cool.
The MAC is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I believe it. We've heard the stories. I wish I could get up there one time. I really would.
Yeah, see what that's like.
But one thing that I've noticed too, Connor, over the past year, you guys have really improved in the penalty kill over this year. What has been the big improvement on the off season, and what's been the change in focus that have helped you guys kill more penalties this season?
Every week we go over the penalty kill either once or twice a week, either watching video on their power play, knowing their systems and all that, so we kind of adjust like week by week what we need to do, but we just focus on the small details to be able to go against their power play. So we kind of just work on that and go into the weekend with it.
For sure. And I mean, you also mentioned before how you said you die for your brothers out there. Last year you led the team in block shots with, I think it was 39-40 or something like that. What's that process like when you kind of have to go in front of those slap shots that are going 80, 90 miles an hour and hoping that it doesn't catch you in the spot where you're not protected?
The only thing you're really thinking about is not letting it get past you in the net. So that adrenaline's going. Sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. You'll feel it the next day, that's for sure. But you just got to do what you have to do to help your team out.
What's the worst place you got hit?
Oh, I would say collarbone. Right past the shoulder pad. Didn't hit any padding. Hit the collarbone. That's never a good one.
That bruise really bad? Break it at all or no?
No break, but it was a good bruise.
That's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, for those that haven't played hockey and don't have the full experience, what's the pain tolerance out on the ice? Because you guys are getting checked into boards, you're getting pushed down on the ice, and inevitably punches get thrown that people don't see. Like, what's that toughness level that you guys see on the ice every single game?
It's up there. I don't know if I can really compare it to another sport because I didn't play many other ones besides hockey and soccer, and obviously soccer's not contact like hockey is. So, but I guess I'm kind of used to it by now. But people would say you get thrown into a game and get hit, it's not going to feel good. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I play in a men's league, and there's a 7-year-old on one of the teams, and I took a wrist shot, maybe going 20 miles an hour to like the ankle, and I was dead after that. I had to go off the ice. So I can imagine getting smoked in the collarbone by a slap shot.
Oh, that sounds awful. Especially the top tier guys in the NHL, 100 miles per hour.
Dude, those would be rough.
Oh, that
would
is
be tough.
That is rough.
Yeah, for sure. And then about a month ago, with the locker room and stuff, we got a much needed facelift. A lot of the Ferris fans were able to follow that. Is there a difference now, like kind of when you're getting ready for games and practices, kind of having that kind of lighting with the red and kind of making it seem like it's more of like get you ready for the game a little bit, does it?
Yeah, it was really cool. Obviously, it's my 3rd year here, so it was nice to see like a little bit of change to the locker room, and they did a really good job with it. Obviously, the red lights, kind of a nice little ad.
Yeah.
I don't know if we needed it, but honestly, it helps. We turn the lights off in the locker room before games. We leave the red on. We get in the mindset. We do our pregame huddle and everything, so it's kind of nice to add to that.
For sure.
Yeah, and you're from Odessa, a little bit of ways away. Where did you get the idea of coming to Ferris, and what brought you to be a Bulldog?
No, I've kind of jumped all around when I was growing up, and especially went from high school, and I bounced around in New England and then Alaska, and then ended up in Odessa, and it's just kind of the coach reached out to me, and I was needed at the time to come in, and I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity to come here, and I took my chance to come in here, and I obviously love it here. I love the team, love everything about it. So
yeah, we're glad to have you.
Is there a big difference that you've noticed with kind of hockey cultures all over the country? Like, what's kind of the play, like, especially like Texas and for like the NHL that you played in, especially with Alaska? Like, is there any difference of kind of like the work ethic or anything like that, or kind of being around like the fans and stuff?
Obviously, the fans are going to be different everywhere. When I was in Kenai, we had less fans than when I was in Odessa, and then more fans when we come here. So it's kind of gradually gotten larger over the years, but the mentality of everyone's the same. You want to make it to the next level. You want to help your team out. You want to be the best that you can be. So it's kind of, overall, it's kind of cumulative with everyone, but.
For sure.
Yeah, and I noticed one thing when I was reading over some of the roster things. Speaking of lack of spectators, in high school, I heard you ran cross country, which is kind of my forte. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I just kind of, I wanted to get conditioned for the season, and when I was in boarding school, we had to do 3 sports in the fall, winter, and spring, and that was one of the ones in the fall. So I kind of did cross country for a bit, and then when winter came around, I was nice in shape for that. So it was nice.
Very cool. I think people don't realize how underrated of a sport that is for conditioning wise.
Hey, I was cross country manager in high school, so I kind of figured out the same thing. But before we started recording, you mentioned how you were roommates with Kowalski, who runs the Ferris Hockey TikTok. And when Harrison came on, we kind of asked him about that. Have you been on any videos yet, or are you kind of more shy away from being on camera?
You know, I can't dance, so any of those ones I will never be in. I am in a couple. I think it's in the beginning TikToks and everything, but it's kind of, Cade and I, we talk about ideas. He obviously has more ideas than I do. I'll throw him some, and he'll be like, yeah, we can't do that. But, you know, it's fun to see the guys get into it and get active, and, like, obviously, not the crowd, but the fans and everything, they can comment, watch, and kind of just see like what we go through every day and just have fun with it.
Yeah, and especially with the fan interaction, what have you guys experienced from the fans' perspective of them, like just like you mentioned, commenting on those things, sharing them, and even seeing them more at the games and mentioning that? What's that kind of been like to uplift your guys' spirits?
It's fun. It's just a better interaction to have with everyone, and it's good to see smiles on everyone's faces, and obviously puts a smile on your face too, so it's kind of cool in that sense.
For sure. And then, especially as we mentioned, being roommates with Cade, all the hockey team lives at a block of apartments at Oakwood. What's that kind of like? Is there a difference with the guys that practicing it and at games and stuff like that than they are kind of when they're at home and kind of being around each other?
Honestly, it's like we moved the locker room from the rink to Oakwood. It's just kind of, we're all hanging out together. We're always in each other's houses, doing stuff together, watching TV. Whether you're just sitting there doing homework, not doing anything, there's always going to be a group of guys just sitting there doing stuff, so.
That's awesome.
Now, what's the most productive house? Which
one's the party house and which one's the most productive one?
I don't know. I would say the cleanest one would be either 901 or 905. I'm a 901 because I got OCD and I always gotta clean. I just can't deal with it. I don't know. It's just party house. It just kind of would, I guess, rotate.
Where everybody's at the weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have like a designated house for any of that.
For sure. And especially with that being on and stuff like that, we asked Brendan as well this question, kind of like pregame routines and superstitions and stuff. You mentioned OCD, that kind of goes into it as well. Do you have any superstitions or routines?
Yeah, I got a couple. Every game day, I have to. So we usually have if it's a 7:00 game, we'll have a 5:40 meeting. I'll get to the rink at 5, and then I'll actually have my pregame nap from 3 to 4, and then get dressed from 4 to 4:40 and leave. And I do that every time, whether it's home or away. And say we went on a Friday night, I have to wear the same thing the next day, whether that was to the rink in the morning, the same suit and everything, same tie. So I just kind of keep that consistent with how we're doing.
Yeah. Creature of habit, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool. But final question here for you, Connor. We ask every athlete of this on the show. What has been your favorite thing about being a Ferris State Bulldog?
Wow, there's so many that I can choose from, but I would just say the community that I'm a part of. It doesn't get better than this. It's a small town. You know everybody, and you make friends all over. You can friends with other teams. It's not just your team. Friends with other students from your classes, and even the teachers here. You can be friends with them. Obviously, I wouldn't say friends, but you can,
to an extent.
Yeah, you can be close with them, and they'll help you out. And it's a great place to succeed, and the community will help you do that.
That's very cool. Well, thank you so much, Connor, for coming on. We really appreciate you taking time. Good luck this weekend against Michigan Tech. Hopefully you can block a couple shots, save the game for us a couple times. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Connor for coming on to the show. Got a big weekend coming up for the hockey team. He's got a busy schedule that he's got to stay on top of. But we'll hop right into the Ferris State Sports Report starting on the ice. Hockey's got Michigan Tech this weekend coming to Gleben. It's going to be a big one. Red Out weekend. It's going to be a blast. Got so much stuff going on with events. But this is two very big games that they need to win, especially if they want to kind of move up in the seeding a little bit for the CCHA playoffs. I don't think home ice is in the question anymore for them when it comes to the postseason. But, 2 wins against a very good team in Michigan Tech is going to be something that they're looking for, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at these 2 games as must-haves if you're talking home ice right now. I mean, trailing 6 points to Lake State and then Northern as well. We'd have to flip over top to get up there as well. So it's gonna be tough. But I mean, we've done it before, and I know everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, we've heard this chat before." But I mean, in reality, when you go back into a tournament, it's 0-0. It really doesn't matter what your record is. We've seen Cinderellas all the time, a la March Madness. I know it's not relevant because it's a different sport, but in reality, it's the same thing. We've seen it across any sort of sport. When the lights come on, sometimes teams fall apart. And I mean, being at home ice is definitely going to be huge. I mean, going up to the Sioux, I think people kind of overshadow that it's such a hard place to play. And I know we talked about that on the preview, but these are going to be some fun games. I mean, I think I'm really hoping that we get the environment in such an energetic crowd. And with everything going on,
yeah. If we can get a big crowd going,
that will make this team better. Because when we've played in those nearly hostile and home environments, especially when we talked about Michigan State, when we talked about some of the earlier games this year, I mean, those were just huge boosts for this team. So we really need that crowd base to help this team, because I mean, Michigan Tech's going to be no slouch. I mean, they're coming in the year 15-6-1, and I mean, really they've just been a powerhouse. But this team is beatable, Joe. I mean, we just talked about last week. They lost to a team that they should have beat.
Yeah, for sure. They lost to Northern Michigan, which was tough. I mean, they're second in the CCHA right now, which is 15-6-1. We're kind of the exact opposite, 8-14-0. So it's going to be a tough one, especially seeing that they don't really have a lot of weak points. They're very strong all the way across the board. I mean, their defense is fast and technical. Their offense has really great hands and ability to put the puck where they need to get it to. So, and they have a really good penalty kill system too. So, it's going to be a really tough ask, but I think if, the stadium's rocking or the arena's rocking and the Bulldogs are out to play, I think we're going to be doing pretty good. I mean, when you look back before, the first game we played them in the MAC was, 6-0 loss or like a 6-1 loss or something like that. So that wasn't the greatest thing to see. But, before we had a 6-4. So they're a team that can score a lot of goals, but, we just got to find the weak points. It's going to be tough, but I think if we can do that, then they're going to be doing some really good work. I mean, Marshall Moyes is starting to pick it up a little bit with the goal scoring, so hopefully he'll be picking up a little bit. Justin McKillian's been pretty solid. Our guy Brendan's been doing good on the backside with the defense. He's been kind of picking up some stuff. And, I mean, Connor, too, he's a guy who, is gritty. He's blocking shots. He's going to really put his body on the line. So we got a lot of guys who, are going to dig deep, and I think we're going to do pretty well this weekend. I mean, I want to tweet out a win against the Huskies. So hopefully we go out and we show out.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Michigan Tech, I'm especially like on the stat lines and a lot of the games that they've played, defensively, they're a stout team. They've only allowed 52 goals this year, which is the second highest in the CCHA, obviously trailing the top team. Nearly one of the, I think they're ranked number 2 right now, the Minnesota State Mavericks.
2 or 3.
2 or 3,
but they have the best defense. Like, they have the least goals allowed out of anybody.
Yeah. The top defense in the country is the only team that they're trailing. So that's going to be kind of how are we going to do to thread the needle to get shots on net is going to be the big part in this game. Because offensively, I mean, they're not necessarily the biggest powerhouse as comparison to some other teams. Like Northern Michigan had the same number of goals as they do. And I mean, we took them 7-6 back, and that was pretty much just a shootout of a game a couple of months ago. But I mean, the fact is, we go into this game with nothing to lose. That's the biggest part of it, right? It's not like we're Minnesota State. We have a chance to clinch right now. And you know who's also rooting for us? The Mavericks. Because if we can beat Michigan Tech, they clinch the number 1 seed.
They're going to be outright CCHA champions for the regular season.
Yes, and they would love to have that trophy to themselves, because you don't want to take a jigsaw and just rip that trophy down the middle. That's just lame. You want it to yourself, but that's practically what is on the line. So there's really, I mean, obviously, do we want to help out the Mavericks? No, but we want to win and help ourselves out and get into a good playoff spot. Because in reality, too, like based off where we are in the standings, I mean, be frank, Lake State, Northern, they went out and they stay over top of us in the seeding. I mean, we're going to be looking at probably playing Michigan Tech again. So that's just the way that the seeding's lining up for the CCHA tournament. We'll let St. Thomas take care of Minnesota State. So the biggest thing is really we're looking into this game really not necessarily as a trial run, but I mean, you're going to see a lot of different things coming from this team because there's going to be changes if they were expecting to play them again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the way it's looking right now, with only 2 weeks left in the regular season, Minnesota State's on top. So if playoffs started right now, they'd be playing St. Thomas. So it looks like that's going to be a lock for those two. I don't think St. Thomas has a chance to overtake us. We're going to be playing Michigan Tech if, season ended now. Bemidji's going to be taking on Northern, and then Bowling Green and Lake State are going to be playing each other. They could easily flip because their records are really, really similar. I think our Bowling Green's 11-10 and Lake Superior's 10-12. So with 4 games left, easily flippable, but I think those two will be playing each other most likely. But we'll see who's going to be playing this week anyways. Excuse me. We have Bowling Green taking on Lake State, so that's going to be a big one for them. Or sorry, I've read the wrong weekend. I apologize. That's on me. Bowling Green's going to be taking on Northern Michigan in Bowling Green this weekend, so that one's going to be big. Northern's going to try to get a couple wins so they can overtake Lake State. We're obviously going to be taking on Michigan Tech. Bemidji and Minnesota are going to be having the Minnesota Miracle matchup against them in Mankato, and then Lake State is going to be taking on St. Thomas. So they're looking to get 2 wins, and St. Thomas is trying to get a couple, so that way they can, maybe move up a little bit. I don't know if they're going to be able to overtake us at all, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, the biggest game, the first one that you mentioned, Bowling Green, Northern Michigan, right? Bowling Green beats 2 on Northern, and if we even got just a split with a tough Michigan Tech team, I mean, boom! Look where we are. We're tied. That's where we are, and that could be the difference of playing Michigan Tech or Bemidji, who we've beaten twice on the road already.
True.
Big time weekend. And then we got Northern coming up, which we can definitely beat that team. So start the momentum. Start it up. We need everybody there. Wear red. Let's get our dogs and help them get 2 wins with our energy.
Red out, baby. Red out.
It big time. Gonna be fun. Baby. Anyway, moving on over now into basketball. We got our Bulldogs in action this weekend, traveling across the pond for a nice doubleheader. The first matchup, they will be taking on Parkside over in Kenosha this evening on Thursday. That's February 17th, 6:30, 8:30 tip-off times. Looking for 2. And I think really coming off of the big wins at Northwood, especially the second half efforts were really huge. Keeping that momentum rolling over this weekend, get 2 games, and then let's come back and let's really rock out Wink and finish off the season strong.
Yeah, for sure. I think these 2 games are going to be, I wouldn't say like 2 crazy tests, but just, late season on the road is always tough when you go to opposing gyms. And I mean, Wisconsin Parkside and Purdue Northwest are near the bottom of the table. Wisconsin Parkside, I think, is maybe 9th, I think, in the GLIAC. I can do a quick double check. They are, I think 9th at 8-8, and then Purdue Northwest is second to last at 3-14. But anything can happen, really. I mean, especially late season. It's almost near in March, so you kind of got those jitters a little bit, kind of getting some. If we're able to win these 2, we secure another 20-win season for us, which is incredible for Coach Bronkma's. Or if we just win 1 this weekend, we'll secure a 20-win season, which is an incredible repertoire and resume for Coach Bronkman and his program that he's been able to build here. But I mean, I'm excited to see these 2 games. I think these are 2 bounce back games for Walt, so he can kind of get back into his scoring groove a little bit, as well as development for some of our bench players a little bit more. And I think we're going to do pretty solid, especially with returning back home. We have Michigan Tech and Northern Michigan. And if you remember Northern Michigan last year, 2 years ago, they upset us at the GLIAC tournament at home, first round, when we were number 1 seed. So that was rough. And then Michigan Tech is right behind us. So if we're able to win these 2 weekends and beat Michigan Tech, we are outright GLIAC champions. So pretty big stakes coming for this last 2 weekends of GLIAC play. But I think our guys can step up and take it.
Bad memories of Northern, but yeah, absolutely. Don't overlook these games, right? Especially on the road. We haven't had the recent success on the road, and I know Coach Bronkman has said that the team hasn't came out with enough energy as what they're capable of. And I mean, we know what this team can do when they're capable of. I mean, we've seen already huge performances, dominant performances, and even going back to the first time we played these 2 teams, if you can remember all the way back in early December when we had the massive crazy weekend here on campus where we had 22 athletic events in the span of 72 hours.
Jeez.
We had these games played at Big Rapids High School. That's how long ago that we faced these 2 teams. So anything can happen time now between then. So we don't know necessarily what we obviously have the scouting reports, but what we've seen now might be a lot different than what we saw on December 2nd, December 4th from these 2 teams.
For sure, a lot of development for really good teams. But the thing is that we got to look at is the top 3 teams on the men's side of the basketball standings for the GLIAC are within about 3 games of each other, 3-4 games. I mean, Saginaw Valley's 11-5, Michigan Tech is 13-3, and then we top it at 14-2. But it could really shake it up if Saginaw Valley wins out the season. Michigan Tech maybe loses 1 or 2, and I mean, hopefully not. We maybe lose 1. It could really shake up a little bit, and the GLIAC is really anybody's at this point for these top 3 teams, and it's going to be a really tough weekend for us to work it out. But I think we'll be able to really. I won't say shock the world because we're expected to, play good, but I think we'll be able to do really well against a very tough Michigan Tech team coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for what I'm seeing a lot from this team is being able to take care of the basketball and being able to move the basketball. And looking back at a lot of all these games back that we've played so far, there's only been 1 game that we've lost when we've had over 20 assists, and that was against the top 5 team in the country in Minnesota, Duluth at the time. I believe now they're ranked around 8 or 9. But still, that team was tough, and that team was an excellent ball game. I mean, 109-107 and 2 OTs, all you have to say about that game. So being able to find open guys, because we can shoot the rock. There's no question There's no question about that. We have guys that can fill it up. I mean, we've got, I believe, 3 guys that are shooting over the 45% mark right now from 3 in Lee Higgins, Dorian Louie, Ben Davidson as well, with at least, I believe, 2 shot attempts per game. But that's a huge boost when you're able to knock those shots down. But what happens when they don't fall, right? That's what we've seen the last couple of games where we haven't shot the basketball as well as we normally have. Northwood was definitely a boost, but on the road, the last 2 games we shot 41 and 42% at Davenport and Lake State and just over and under 30% from 3. What happens when the chips are down and not going to make shots? That's what we're going to see from this team. Make sure you take care of the basketball, find the open looks, get out in transition, and do what these guys do best. And then we're going to be in good shape because these ones are 2 that we can't overlook, but we have to know just got to get 2 and play your best, and you can move on with 2 wins.
And some teams who are going to be looking to get some more wins this upcoming weekend. It's going to be, we're starting off with a banger tonight at 7:30. Saginaw is making the trip up to the UP for their UP weekend. They're going to be taking on Michigan Tech. So 2 teams that are really looking to shake up the standings and shake each other up with their records. And then Wayne State is also making the trip up to the UP. They're going to be taking on Northern Michigan tonight. So Northern Michigan is going to try to get a little bit better standing for this GLIAC tournament coming up. Purdue Northwest is going to be playing host to Lake Superior State. Grand Valley is traveling to Davenport for a rescheduled game. And then Ferris State, obviously, we're going on to Parkside tonight. And then Saturday, Wayne State's going to be traveling, or going to make the trip to Houghton to Michigan Tech, and then Northwood's going to be playing Grand Valley State. Saginaw Valley is going to take on Northern Michigan. We're going to be taking on Purdue Northwest. I can't even say Purdue Northwest the right way. And then Parkside is going to be playing host again to Lake Superior State. So that's going to be a good one. A lot of good weekend of men's basketball in the GLIAC. But if we want to talk about women's, we can go for it.
Yeah, women's are going to be playing the same 2 opponents, just 2 hours earlier for each start time. And for them, I mean, really riding the momentum train, 4 out of 5, right? And they've been good wins too. I mean, beating a tough Wayne State team on the road, beating Lake State on the road, definitely can improve confidence going into these games. And I mean, they played fantastic at Northwood. I mean, the biggest thing that I've really seen from this team now gradually over the last couple weeks of games is we're starting to not be afraid to shoot the basketball, and we have really been a good shooting team as of late compared to what we started with on the season. Because I mean, we started off pretty hot at the beginning of the year, then it kind of calmed down a little bit. And I mean, I think Wayne State was definitely one of those games that kind of really shook it up a little bit as far as percentage is concerned. But, I mean, ever since then, we've really been able to get back on track. A whole lot of games over 45 from 3. That's huge. But the inside presence has been great as well. Caledonia and Maya Hiram are putting great minutes together. And really being able to see the offense move so fluently has been a huge boost for this team. Coach Westorp's done a great job. And really, it's going to have to flow over into this weekend. I mean, Parkside and Purdue are pretty solid teams on the women's side. Obviously, when you look at the favorite in there, we're going to be the favorite in both, obviously. That's nothing to sleaze at because obviously we've seen upsets happen before. But being able to play our best, being able to get the sets moving, keep the ball moving, and being able to knock down shots will be huge for us this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of looking at the national polls so far, Grand Valley is moving all the way up to 4 in the nation right now. So they're going to be looking to finish out the season strong and, get a really good spot for that GLIAC tournament, as well as trying to finish strong for the March Madness for D2. And then Saginaw Valley State as well has kind of been making a push for the top 25 as well. So we're going to be seeing some really good games this upcoming weekend for men's and women's basketball. I'm pretty excited for it. Being able to work it. Working Thursday or Monday or whatever when we saw that Northwood game was a really good one.
Yeah,
we see some
Monday.
Good plays. So going to be trying to carry that over into some 2 very good teams.
Yeah, it's going to be big. And I think both for the men's and women's teams going in this weekend. I mean, obviously, we're the favorites. We're going into the games that we should win too. Don't overlook them, but play our game and we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
I mean, on both sides. The inside-out presence has improved on both teams, and you being able to use that to our advantage will be huge this weekend because there's favorites in that matchup down low as well. Seeing Logan Ryan, seeing Caledonia get good points, and being able to establish that inside presence, and then when we're able to really get teams to bite in, kick out, light it up, that's what makes our team best, and that'll be huge.
Yeah, for sure. I think when our players kind of do what they're expected of this weekend, we're going to be doing pretty well. I mean, if Mallory McCartney can open up the floor a little bit, get hot from 3, she's going to be doing pretty solid. Kaden Blanchard, too, if she starts laying it up a little bit, like we said last episode, she had a little bit of a slow start in the game against Northwood, but fourth quarter she picked it up really well. So I think when we see that, we're going to be looking for a very good game. And, if we're able to, like I said, do what's expected, I think we're going to go and get 2 wins and get ready for a next hard week.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Tonight will be both matchups for Parkside. Men's start at 8:30, women's beginning earlier at 6:30, and then Saturday it will be at, I believe, 2
and 4
o'clock and 4 o'clock. Thank you, Joe, for those matchups. But those are the basketball matchups. I believe you'll be able to listen online, Sunny 97.3. if you want to hear all the action. Rob Bentley, Sandy Golston on the call. Should be fun. But anyway, moving on over, a packed weekend of sports as well. Friday, my dogs, the track and field squad, will be going to Saginaw Valley for the tune-up meet.
Yes, sir.
I'm really looking forward to this meet. A couple reasons. One, coming off of a race that I was happy with, but obviously, like, I ran nowhere near the time that I'm capable of, and I'm totally okay with that just because I want to get back in the swing of things. This is a great meet to really get out there and see what you can do. And there's going to be a lot of competitors that are going to be switching events. That's totally normal. Like I'm primarily in more of the distance caliber races. I'll be running the mile this weekend. It's just a little bit of that little quick twitch that you get for a tune-up, being able to turn it over a little bit, going into getting as fast as possible for the indoor championships that'll be coming up next weekend. But it'll be on Friday, Saginaw Valley. Starts, I believe, around 2 o'clock might be for field events. Running events start at about 4 o'clock. So that'll be fun to see. And, I mean, there's not going to be too many, I wouldn't want to say like too many tough teams there, but there's quite a few reputable teams that we'll be running against, but they're not going to be the same caliber as Big Meat, which really kind of gives that feel of, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to really try this. I'm going to go for something different. I'm going to try a different style. And that's really what tune-up is for, right? Being able to see what you're doing really well, trying to fix on the things that you might have been struggling with, and hint, hint, tune that up going into the GLIAC Championship. So, going to be a fun one. That's going to be on Friday live. I believe live stream might be available through Saginaw. I don't know. They're kind of more spotty about that than Grand Valley is. But live events will be online. If you want to follow my times and my teammates, because we will be running fast this weekend, book it.
Yes, sir.
Book it.
Run fast this weekend, Brandon.
I'm going to try. That's the goal. I do like Saginaw's track just a little bit better. And it's shorter turns, longer straights. That's what I like a little bit more.
Is it soft? Are the track things like hard? I know like it's not like super soft or anything, but like aren't like the nice tracks like a little bit softer or whatever?
Yeah, there's some that are made out of different, like slightly different material. That's primarily more for outdoor, just because like indoor it's pretty hard to kind of to mix the material for having to be inside and everything and taking care of that for maintenance wise, but. Outdoor, it definitely gets different. Like our track here at Ferris is a lot different than Hillsdale's track. Everybody knows that as the Mondo track because it's just faster. I don't know what it is about it. The little bit of material, it makes it a little more springy. Everybody runs faster there, but it should be fun. I mean, I really don't pay attention to it as much as some other people do, just because I don't like thinking about it too much because I tend to let things get to my head a little bit too fast.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the competitor in you, Brandon. That's how I know you. I mean, you just kind of not overthink things, but you think of everything.
I think of everything. That's
the one thing.
Don't overthink, but I think of everything.
That is true. You prepare for everything. That's what makes you a good athlete. That's what makes you a good guy.
Heart emoji.
Heart.
We're having a real
moment.
Real heart-to-heart moment.
High five it out.
Yeah, stay tuned for heart-to-heart coming up in a while. So.
That'll be fun.
Shameless plug for like 2 months from now.
Shameless plug.
Put it in the calendar, write it in with your Sharpie or your pen, whatever.
Yeah, put it on your
reminder on your phone that it's going to be fun. You just have to wait and see about that. But a first coming up this weekend for the season, softball will be going down to, I believe the town is called Smyrna, Tennessee. If I butcher that, I apologize to the people of Tennessee. But it's the Music City Invite, and they're going to the state of Tennessee. They left at 5 a.m. this morning. Yeah, jeez. 5 a.m. Whoa. Let her sleep on the charter bus. But they're going to have a full slate of games this weekend starting on Saturday.
They got like 9 games or 6 games.
Yeah, or actually, no, tomorrow. They'll be actually playing tomorrow first with Lindenwood. They will be playing tomorrow at 1, and then at 3 o'clock they'll take on Indianapolis, and then Saturday they'll be playing Rockhurst, the team that we played in volleyball a while ago, and they'll also be playing McKendree, as well as Sunday, Southern Indiana and Missouri S&T.
That's a mouthful. What a mouthful, but
6 games. Yeah, 6 games coming in. Really, just getting back into softball groove, and there's not really much analysis you can do when we're talking about softball in February because it's gonna be different.
I mean, the preseason polls came out. I mean, we are last, which is unfortunate.
Keep sleeping.
But like, keep sleeping on us. Like that's just what's gonna happen. Last year, I will say this: like, from the games I saw, I only saw like 3 games. So take my take as much as you want, because I don't think I'm like the most qualified to make this, but I'm gonna make it anyways. What I noticed is our defense is very like, we're good, but we give up a lot of like rallies. I think like there's times where like the opposing team will get like maybe 3 or 4 on base, like score a run or 2, and then we'll have 2 outs and a chance to put it away, but it'll just be a little simple mistake that'll kind of elongate that inning a little bit, and they might score 1 or 2. So a game that we end it like 8-1 or 8-2 or something like that, or a 4 or 5 run deficit or whatever when the game ends, we could have made it maybe 1, and it would have been a whole different story. So that's the one thing that I'm pretty excited for them to see is, the defensive improvement this year as well as the offensive improvement. I think we'll be able to see a lot. Now that we're going to be working for athletics, maybe we'll see a little bit more games as well. We might have to work some. So I'm pretty excited for this season coming around. Softball always means that the weather's getting nicer. I mean, I love to watch softball and baseball. I love baseball, so obviously softball is kind of right there with it. So I'm pretty excited to see how the team's going to do this weekend, as well as kind of getting ready for preseason and when the GLIAC play starts.
Yeah, I mean we've got so many young players coming on this team, so it's going to be really fun to see how they start out. I mean, especially in these games where you're going to be looking at everybody getting playing time in these type of tournaments to see what you got. So there's going to be a lot of in and out as far as getting fresh players in for each game in each tournament, because I mean everybody that's played a long baseball or softball tournament knows it can be a grueling long set of games. So but you always have the depth to be able to put new players in the lineup and being able to see what they do, especially the young players, just to see how they can fit on this team. So it's going to be really fun to see a lot of quality opponents as well, that are especially in the Division II level, and it should be really interesting. I'll be interested to see how they play this weekend, and then see how they do at Lewis when they go play that indoor tournament that they always do every year.
I don't know. Indoor tournaments are kind of cool. Like I played one in high school. Now it's like the ball flies a lot differently.
It does
when there's no wind affecting it. But if you want to see want to see what the GLIAC preseason coach poll is looking like, Grand Valley State is at the top. That's kind of commonplace for them, and then Northwood is following them. Saginaw Valley is 3rd. Davenport is 4th. Wayne State is 5th. Purdue Northwest is 6th, Parkside is 7th, and then we round out the bottom. But like we said, keep sleeping on us. It can change. There can be rallies. There can be upsets. There can be a whole lot of stuff. So very excited for this 2022 softball season.
Yeah, they're putting us low because we're a young team and we didn't play our best last year. That's really all it is. So that's fine. You can be surprised when we win some games and beat some teams we shouldn't, and there you go. That's all that you have to say about them. But final rounding out the sports report, tennis will be in action at home this weekend, starting tomorrow, Friday at noon.
We're going to be there, baby.
We will be. Well, you will be there.
I'll be there. I'm covering it for the torch. I'm covering men's for the torch. Brandon's covering women's for the torch.
Yeah, I will be there on Sunday.
It's my first one I'm going to be at. I've never been there before.
I'm so excited.
Well, I've been there. I've been at the Racket Center to get my refund, so that way I could not have to pay to have a membership at the Racket Center. I'm just saying, that's how it is. But I didn't do it this year because I was just like, I'm going to try to get to the Racket Center a couple times. And hey, I'm watching a tennis match. I have never watched a tennis match like on TV or anything, so I'm pretty excited.
Not even on TV?
Nope. I've played the Wii tennis plenty of times.
Oh, yeah, that's
but we'll see what it goes. I mean, I'm going to try to get there. I don't know how long these last because we have to obviously be there for Red Out or whatever Friday to set up. But I'm going to try to get there a good amount, try to get a few interviews in there, get some quotes, get some good stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, a little teaser coming up for the Torchies that follow this podcast as well. Yeah, it should be fun. I have not been to a Ferris tennis match. I've been to a couple other matches, and obviously I've watched like Wimbledon and the big ones before, the Australian Open, etc. So I'm really excited just to see what this team is, because I mean the veteran presence of both squads is really gonna show through. I think this year there's a lot of great things that this team has done in years past, and there's really like we're bringing a lot of new faces in, but we still got the veteran presence, and we still got Coach Doran being able to establish his program that he's done a great job with. So everything's looking up. I think people just need to go out and see how good this tennis team really is, because we talk about them a lot, but I don't feel like a lot of people go out and watch just because they don't know what to expect from tennis. You know what I mean? It's just a different sport, and it's not one of like the Power 5 that you see on TV: football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer. It's just kind of a shame because they're playing some quality tennis, and just not everybody knows about it.
That's the one thing is like To be honest, I didn't even know that Ferris had a tennis team until like my senior year of high school. When I went to a Ferris football game, like they hit like tennis balls, like where if you caught one, you got a free pop or whatever. And I was like, Ferris has a tennis team? Like I had no idea. And then like going over to the racket center, it's honestly a pretty cool space. I mean, it looks really cool, but I'm excited to go to my first game.
Yeah, I've played some tennis before. But when I was on spring break in Florida, me and my buddy that went down, we ended up playing some, and it's definitely kind of a fun sport to get into. It's definitely a hard sport to perfect because I mean, anything you can do can be slightly better, can be slightly faster, more efficient. So,
I mean, I'm good at ping pong, but like that's it. Like ping pong and pickleball, I've played a lot, but I've never played tennis before.
Yeah, I have played ping pong. I have played tennis. I've not played pickleball though. That's one that's
pickleball
got me.
is fun.
I have to play some pickleball, but it's apparently it's a pretty quality sport from what I've heard. Some of the football coaches play in the spring.
Really?
So yeah, they go out on the area, kind of like I think it would be south of the south end zone on like that area that's like cemented. And they set up a net and you have some lines up and they play some pickleball. You know, in between spring practices and stuff. Pretty cool.
What a fun time.
So yeah, it's pretty fun. I heard Coach Anise is pretty good. He's pretty intense at it too.
I bet he probably is too.
Yeah, but it's got to be a blast. So I'll have to try pickleball out. Maybe
I might have to ask that in a preseason whatever. Be like, hey, you got the pickleball net out yet?
Pickleball out yet? You know.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I feel like it'll be funny.
We'll see it. But anyway, that's the Ferris State Sports Report. When we come back, NBA trade deadline grades and the Olympics. What's happening with the USA? Stay tuned.
When Brandon and I first started our podcast, we didn't know really what to do. Bulldog Radio helped us out, but the one big thing that really made us really go to the next level was Anchor.fm. If you want to start your own podcast, go through Anchor.fm. They make it so easy. They make it a one-stop shop for you to record, edit, and publish your podcast. And not only that, they publish it to a whole bunch of different platforms for you to go on. I mean, we've talked about it. You got Castbox, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just to name a few. So if you guys want to start your own podcast, go on Anchor.fm. You can make your own account, start editing, start recording, and start publishing your podcast today. And we're going to be coming back from our little break that we always take in the middle of the show. Brandon, NBA trade deadline has now finished. A lot of moves have been made. Some of them great, some of them not so great. Some teams really won the trade deadline. Some teams really lost the trade deadline. I know I was kind of following Detroit a little bit with the Marvin Bagley trade and stuff like that. But were there any that kind of caught your mind a little bit?
Yeah, obviously, Detroit fans, the Marvin Bagley trade was one that I know personally I saw coming from a mile away. I know I wasn't the only one in that ballpark of idea, just because it made sense and everything forward. And I mean, especially the fact of we were really looking to hypothetically move off of Jeremy Grant, but we've heard from Troy Weaver that was not the case. But I think there was quite a few teams that I think really did some good moves over the trade deadline. I think there was some definite intrigue of the Brooklyn-Philadelphia deal. Obviously was the one that everybody's talking about, that James Harden ends up in Philadelphia in exchange for Ben Simmons and a couple other players and picks as well. Paul Millsap's added to that deal. But I think one team that I think really was interesting was that people probably aren't talking about was Hornets adding Montrezl Harrell, because I think that's really a great move for them, because when you really look at this Charlotte Hornets team, obviously you got LaMelo Ball, right? You got a young stud in the backcourt that's going to be there for a long time. And you got a lot of other great pieces. Terry Rozier has played above his expectations this season as far as what they're expecting him off of that deal. And then they got James Bouknight coming off the bench. They obviously have Miles Bridges. Gordon Hayward will be back into full strength soon. They have Mason Plumlee as well. That can be a formidable center. They have P.J. Washington to throw in there as well. And then you bring in a guy like Montrezl Harrell that can... What you saw a lot of, you see a lot of athleticism, especially with Miles Bridges, especially flexibility-wise. You have with Terry Rozier, you have Mason Plumlee, and then you have Kelly Oubre also as well coming off the bench as well that you can throw in there. And then you bring in the toughness of Montrezl Harrell, and that I think is really going to help them, especially in the rebounding category. And I mean, they're a team they're not looking too far out of the NBA standings right now for where they're sitting at here coming into the All-Star break happening this weekend, which should be really fun. They're sitting right now, I believe, 9th, which I believe is only 2.5 games behind the Brooklyn Nets. So that's not terrible either. And you got teams that there's a lot of question marks behind. The Raptors start off the season well. Are they going to be able to keep it up? Are the Boston Celtics going to stay hot? And what's the situation going to be like in Philadelphia with how this whole James Harden deal goes?
Yeah.
So obviously they're going to be a better team. I think that Philadelphia, ultimately, it was a weird move because superstar for superstar is fun, but it just kind of seemed like James really had the upper hand in this whole thing, and I don't think it was on. I think it was on purpose of the fact of he really wasn't ready for what he signed up for when he came to Brooklyn. I don't think because obviously Kyrie's vaccination status, only playing road games. KD's been in and out of the injury room for a while now. So he was kind of out there by himself, and he's like, I don't really want to do that. I need somebody that can be reliable. And just the whole idea of the mixing lineups left and right wasn't making him happy. And, I mean, frankly, like, that's happened a lot with James Harden. I'm not necessarily going to be saying, like, he's a crybaby or anything, but Houston, now Brooklyn.
Yeah, it
not
happens
been
all
the
over
same.
the place.
So it's really been, it's not been the same teams as why, but it's been really the same story when it comes to James Harden being traded. But I think this is what Philadelphia really wanted. They wanted a big star superstar. I think they did give up a lot, though, giving up Ben Simmons and the picks as well. And then you give them Seth Curry, who's going to fill in perfectly for Joe Harris, who they've been desperately missing shooting the basketball.
For sure.
So I think that overall, I think both teams are happy with the trade. I think Philadelphia and Ben Simmons definitely realized that they needed to give up more than they wanted, or they needed to give up more than I think they wanted to and not get as much in return. And I think that was the move that pretty much they had to make, or they weren't going to make anything for what they were asking earlier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, in my opinion, I mean, the Nets won this trade. I mean, especially with getting rid of, but trading away James Harden. Like you said, he's kind of, I wouldn't say problematic, but he's definitely a guy who I think when you see that he spent, some time with the Rockets and it didn't really go well, he kind of left that. And I think it's when, like, he doesn't get his... Whenever it doesn't get his way, he kind of just like jumps ships a little bit. And what could have been with KD and Kyrie and James Harden, if like all that kind of worked out, it didn't. So they kind of gave that away. But I mean, Nets with Seth, like you mentioned, Seth Curry, he's gonna fit in perfectly. I think he's such an underrated player. I mean, he's already been able to really provide for them and be really well. I mean, Ben Simmons, obviously, he's a drive guy. He's a get layups. He's a point guard in that sense. And Andre Drummond, I mean, honestly, he hasn't really been super great in my opinion. However, we'll see how the Nets kind of get him, and then obviously those 2 first-round picks, so that's going to be good for them. And those were 2 that, like, or when that happened, I was like, I didn't even know that was going to happen because I thought that was kind of under the radar. But I guess that was like that's a big deal. But like that was kind of more talked about than I actually thought. Yeah,
I like them adding Drummond as far as the toughness down low, because I think with, obviously what they have right now, really, I think you're honestly looking at Nick Claxton as really kind of the guy that's going down to be the primary guy down the stretch, I feel like, with this team. You do have guys like I have a tough time putting LaMarcus Aldridge as like the primary center and not a stretch 4 in that spot. I know he doesn't have the athleticism, but his skill set is so much better at the stretch 4 spot when you can take him outside of the paint and let him hit from mid-range, because that's really what he's made his career on at a high level. But he's still a good inside player. But bringing in Drummond, I think, is really the biggest thing. Is you're getting more shots for KD. You're getting more shots for Seth Curry now. You're getting more shots for Kyrie in the road games. That's what you're bringing in Andre Drummond for. Get some rebounds off the bench, being able to get more possessions, get more shot attempts for some of the best shooters in the game right now. So I think they definitely got a lot out of this trade. I think Philadelphia settled a little bit much, but I will say that I think that the fan base would be pretty happy even though giving up that much.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple other two that I have been kind of looking over, the big 4-team trade between the Bucks, Clippers, Kings, and Detroit. I know we talked about Marvin Bagley a little bit, but like that whole thing is just a cluster of like who gets what. And those ones are always interesting because like I don't know like what goes into like the process of that and like what goes into like the coaches and the organizations seeing like who's going to go where. But honestly, I think the Bucks really won that trade, and I think the Kings are going to do pretty solid. I mean, they're getting Donde DiVincenzo, who's a guy who, I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, you remember what he did in the national championship. He's a guy who's really good or can do stuff off the bench. Obviously we got Marvin Bagley, which I think is a great trade. I mean, but Serge Ibaka going to the Bucks, he's a veteran guy who knows what it takes to have some success and to be on a team who he's a good role player that can fit in there. And I think when you have Giannis already and you have those guys, I think he's going to set in that team really good. I think Clippers kind of lost this one, to be honest. They kind of got the short end of the stick out of this trade, but we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, when they were expected to possibly load up for a run, I mean, especially without PG and Kawhi, it was kind of surprising. But now I think they settled into reality, like, yeah, this might be a little bit out of the question without those two. So, but I mean, yeah, they didn't get a whole lot out of this. I mean, obviously they move on from Serge Ibaka, which I think, I think that was a win for the Bucks. I mean, yeah, you could make slight questions about his contract, but I think in reality, you look at what this team has. I mean, you got a lot of veteran presence around. Like, they added Wesley Matthews from LA, and they also had DeAndre Bembry from the Nets as well over the deadline. So they have a lot of good pieces that they can put in there, and they're just applying depth. They know what this team can do, right? They have George Hill, they have Connaughton come up, they got Giannis, they got Drew Holiday, they got Chris Middleton, they got Bobby Portis. They got all these players that you can make it there because they've made it there already. Now it's let's make sure that we have the depth in case inevitably something might happen, right? So you add Serge Ibaka, veteran presence that can honestly come in and help give Giannis a little bit extra rest, or come in and maybe man down the 5 spot when Brook Lopez or Bobby Portis needs a breather. Just keeping guys fresh and keeping them healthy throughout the rest of the season will be huge come playoff time. So I mean, I really liked what Milwaukee did there. I think the Raptors definitely adding Thaddeus Young was kind of like it's okay. The second rounder is what they wanted, which is honestly okay because Troy Weaver and his second round picks haven't been as great as we'd want them to. So, hey, maybe let's just get a player instead of a second round pick. Let's try that route. I'm all for it, trying a different route like that. The biggest one that I honestly saw over this trade deadline was I wouldn't call it a blockbuster. I would call it definitely probably the most loaded trade overall. I mean, I believe it was six different players in the move between Indiana and Sacramento. I mean, the Kings had just gotten Donte DiVincenzo, Trey Lyles, and Josh Jackson. I mean, kudos to what Trey Lyles was doing for the Pistons before he left. It was kind of sad to see him go, but we knew they wanted Bagley. They really did, and they'll be okay to live with that. So I think the Kings definitely, adding DiVincenzo and Trey Lyles definitely helps. But the move that they made earlier, I think really was, I don't know if I necessarily loved what the Kings did in that scenario, even though, it was probably a pretty good trade. So the move, I believe, if I remember the details correctly, was that they had, they gave up Halliburton, they gave up Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson, and gave them to Indiana for Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday. Mm-hmm. I love Domantas Sabonis. He's a fantastic player. Fantastic. And I know that they're in the rebuild mode. But they won the rebuild mode out of that. They have Tristan Thompson, who's going to be a stopgap for Miles Turner. They know they're going to keep him now. You add Buddy Hield, who's a good shooter, and you have Halliburton to pair him with. Now you're looking at making a move in the draft to get a lot of these good stretch wings that are really looking up on the draft boards right now. I think that they overall won that trade as far as for preparing for the future. I think with the Kings getting Sabonis, they get Justin Holiday to pair with De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell. I think you look at where they're at and you're kind of wondering, where are they going? That's the biggest thing for me. You have all these guys. You have a 2-time All-Star in De'Aaron Fox. How are you going to get from mediocrity to getting up into high postseason play? Is this the move? That's where I don't know. Like, they get Sabonis. Lamb and Holiday, to me, are only more depth pieces. Obviously, they're probably going to play in more, but, they have never went all in. That's the biggest thing I wanted, is if you're going to make a move to move off of guys like Halliburton and Buddy Hield, you go big. But they did. Yeah. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think when you do that, it's not going to really work out too well. But I mean, the trade deadline is always interesting to me because there's teams who don't do anything, and there's teams who just do a lot, and it's always interesting to see like why they would do that. Because like as a fan standpoint, there's a lot of times where like you look at like a GM and you wonder like why they do the things that they do, because there's things that like players like or like that like the fans do, or like they post on like Twitter or whatever, and it's like, man, that'd be a really good idea. Why don't they go do that? And then it's just like there's a lot of things that you think you can do better, but I mean behind the scenes obviously it's a whole different thing, and we don't know all the ins and outs of the NBA trade deadlines and stuff like that, and like the rumors and all that. So I mean that's the one thing that I love about trade deadlines in any sport, is just you don't know what's going to happen. Some teams could go crazy with it, some teams could stay a little bit more conservative with it, and it's always cool to see what's going to happen kind of in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think the overall for me, the winner of probably the trade deadline is the NBA fans. I think it's honestly who won the trade deadline, because obviously the speculation and everything that came around, I think was what everybody wanted. We wanted to see blockbuster moves. There is one team that I know doubtably will bat for being the loser, is 100% Portland. Portland's deal was awful, and I know it's the move that you probably were going to have to make, but what they got in return, not good enough. You have Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, both great players, but you also have Norman Powell. You also have, there's just so much in Portland from the guard position, and then you have Thomas Satoransky there too, and then you add Silva. You have 4 shooting guards technically. Some of them you'll flex out to be a wing, but for what that roster is, it doesn't fit that well. They got the first-round pick, which is good, but, I mean, it's protected too, so you don't know where that's going to be placed, and you give up McCollum, Larry Nance Jr. to give pretty much New Orleans a head start for when they get back. They're going to have Brandon Ingram, C.J. McCollum, and inevitably, whenever he returns from injury, Zion Williamson. That's looking pretty good for a rebuild in New Orleans, I will say that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that was the overall loser, but I mean, hey, it was a fun trade deadline. I'll say that. Who's your winner, Joe?
That's a really good one. I'd say I'm liking where the Kings are at, and honestly, I like where Detroit's at. I know we just got Marvin Bagley. That's really about it, but I like where we're at.
Yeah, I think it was good. Loser?
Trailblazers.
Yeah,
I gotta go with you. I think that's undisputed.
It's so hard, and it'll be between, the pick will be between, I believe, from what Woj said was 5 and 14. 5 and 14 is a huge
gap. Yeah, that's
a huge gap.
That's like a 5-star player versus like a bench, like a good bench player basically, or something like that. Like that's a big gap of where you can get some talent at.
Yeah, not great, but that's NBA trade deadline. Finally wrapping up the show. Olympic Games Beijing 2022 are nearing the end. It's been so fast, Joe. We haven't had a chance to cover them as much as we'd like to, but we'd obviously love to finish out today with them. Medal count leaders as of now, Norway is leading the way at 29. They have 14 golds as well. Germany sitting with 22 and 10 golds. The United States in 21st, leading with 8 silvers. Or no, excuse me. They are second, I believe, with 8 silver medals, 8 golds as well, and 5 bronze. China, the hosts, are in 5th. It's a want for them. But I think the biggest thing that everybody has seen with the Olympics is U.S. men's knocked out early in hockey. Not what we expected.
To see it. Definitely not what we expected. Who we lose to again?
Slovakia.
Yeah, Slovakia in the shootout. That was rough. There was a lot of expectations with this team that I thought we were going to go pretty far. Hey, at least our curling's good. That's what we like to see.
Oh, yeah.
We have, that guy, the one, I forget his name, but the guy with the mullet, he looks like he was just slamming he was like slamming Bud Lights before he came here or something like that, because he just looks like an absolute unit. Like, there's an eagle screeching somewhere every time he cracks open a cold one. But, I don't know, with like, I was kind of honestly, Germany's kind of coming out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting them to have as many medals as they do. But I mean, Norway's pretty expected since they're the most decorated Winter Olympics country of all time. So I don't know. It's interesting to see like what the United States is good at in the Winter Olympics, because you'd think that like we'd be a lot or like higher up in the standing. I mean, we're 3rd, but like we're still 7 medals behind. So you think that we'd be doing pretty good for other stuff, but. I don't know. That was a big thing. The big thing that I was really just not disappointed, but like just sad about is like the way Shaun White ended his career.
Yes.
Like that was rough. If you didn't see it, he fell on his final run when he probably would have medaled, almost gold medal, probably, except the kid from China? I forget his name. He just did a crazy run to take the podium or to take the top of the podium. But I mean, Shaun White ends a 20-year career, 5 Olympics that he's been to, and he's medaled in almost everyone's. Hate to see the last one, but you know, he's a guy who, I don't know, when we were growing up, he was just like he was the action sports guy. Like he is the Tony Hawk of snowboarding.
Yes.
Like anytime you look at the X Games, it's like, oh, Shaun White, all right, he's gonna get a gold. Let's just see what he does. And I think when you see the runs that he puts together and the amount of talent that he has to just do these incredible, the half pipe is honestly one of the hardest things to me that you would think
hands down.
You need to go up at basically a 90-degree angle and then come down at that 90-degree angle again. You can't go an inch farther or else you're going to break a leg, and you can't go an inch the other way because that's the difference between, you know, a 2-foot drop or that's the difference between matching at the top and gliding down smoothly to your knee's broken because you just dropped an extra 5 feet or whatever. So that's like the cool thing about that. And he's just a guy who's been able to dominate that sport or that section of the sport, and he's been incredible. Have you watched his TikToks at all?
I have not watched his TikToks.
Dude,
I'm not familiar with that
watching
platform.
his TikToks just made him like him that much more.
Oh, yeah, I believe it. He was such a likable guy.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
He really was a likable guy. I recall the interview that he had when he won his first gold, when he was only, 18 at the time when he won. And then he was
getting drinks. You're only 18 years old. I'm talking about Mountain Dew, baby.
Yeah, that interview is going to go down as one of the all-time greats. But yeah, I agree. I watched that full half pipe and just seeing him on the last run, it just seemed like the whole life was just sucked out of everybody behind the television. It just really just I was watching it with my parents, and I told them, I said, can they just let him go one more? Just let him have a nice run. Let him come out a couple methods and ride out in style, because we don't want to see him go down on a run like
even
that.
if it doesn't count, like we just want to see him go crazy.
We want to see him do one good one to leave off. But I mean, give credit to Ayumu Hirano, the one you were talking about, the Japanese snowboarder, that one of the best runs I've ever seen. He almost got snubbed from the first or the second run that he was trailing, I believe, early on to Scotty James, but that's a whole nother story. But I think he's passed the torch, though. I mean, you have Chloe Kim, who's going to be incredible for years to come, and I mean, you have a lot of young stars that are going to be great in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's time. You know, it's
the future is bright, and Shaun White paved the way, and I think his legacy is going to stand forever in this sport. So I think, we certainly did well in snowboarding overall. I mean, we had 3 gold medals, 4 total, which was huge. I think it would put us pretty high if, we didn't have biathlon and skiing, which Northway literally just runs the table with every year, every single event. But, it is what it is. But it's been a great Olympics. But I think the biggest thing I saw, as well as the skiing, has been pretty subpar because the man-made snow out there is not sticking, and it's really becoming really hard. And we've seen top-tier athletes like Michaela Schifrin, who's been knocked out of multiple events that normally she'd be in the podium for every single run.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I kind of noticed about it. It's just it's when you look at where the events are, they're just placed all over the place, and it's just it's all man-made snow. They don't have any snow around, which is which you'd think that they try to make it so that way it would be in a spot where there's more natural snow than man-made snow. When you look back, the winter games that would be at Lake Tahoe or something like that, or just in spots where there's actual snow all year round, rather than going to a spot where you have to make artificial snow for these athletes that are used to competing in natural snow. That's such a curve to deal with. And I mean, I'm not even that big of a skier, and telling the difference between skiing on artificial snow or man-made snow and natural snow is an incredible difference, because it's like ice when you're going on man-made snow. It's you're zooming through, you don't have a whole lot of grip. It's not even powder. It's just sheet. It's not even a sheet of ice either. It's just a bunch of chips of ice that you're just kind of gliding over, and it feels a lot different. In man-made snow, it's more of you're kind of pushing through a little bit, and you're able to get a lot more grip on it too. So I mean, that's the one thing when you look at these athletes who are underperforming, you can blame it on the snow. That when they say that the snow is making a big impact, it's not like they're making an excuse to, like kind of like cop out of anything. It's a real thing, and these men and women are really, I would say, struggling with it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is, like, especially the steepness with man-made snow is super difficult. It is absolutely super difficult, and I think people don't realize that. Like, obviously, me and Joe have experience with this being from Michigan. We have a couple months of man-made snow before we have the true good stuff.
Usually
here
on
this time of
Thanksgiving
year.
when they try to push out the start date.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be tough, and the biggest thing about man-made snow that really it doesn't pack together as well. It's really hard to make it just so it gets pressed and compact past the limit of what you'd want to, like with natural snow, where natural snow doesn't necessarily flatten out and push itself out. It stays more compact a lot better.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially it comes down, it's got a pretty much a thicker volume when it falls, as well as compared to what the guns can rip out for man-made snow. So it can be really tough to really get that line of when that snow gets really packed down, it starts getting slick, just like Joe said with the sheets. So we've seen a lot of that, and especially with that steepness, you're going 80 miles per hour, and you're making a hard 45-degree angle of a cut on that. It gets really hard, and especially with the visibility as well. When I turned on, I think it was the Alpine, and you could not see the rider from the snowfall, and I was like, why are we having this? But they made all the man-made snow for this stuff. It doesn't make that much sense, but I don't know exactly what the plan was. I know they were trying to make the best event possible, but in the end, it's just. I don't want to say it was like a little bit of an underwhelming Olympics, but it kind of has, just because of the amount of big names that have fell out early, and the storyline just not being as great in the United States' favor. And I mean, it's pretty easy to top off that with everything you've seen around the Beijing Olympics. Just, everything just looks okay. The Olympic aura doesn't seem when you got all these huge like industrial plants everywhere in between the giant slalom and stuff. It just doesn't look the same, and it's just really kind of depleting the Olympic experience for the viewer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the same thing. I really can't add much to it because you kind of knocked it out of the park.
Home run.
Home run, baby.
Wii Sports Olympics.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Dude, honestly. You see Wii Sports coming back to Switch?
Yes, I did see that.
They don't have baseball, though, and they don't have the Miis, though.
Yeah, that's
so
lame.
that's a little bit different, but regardless.
Tennis is back, though.
That's true.
That was always so fun. And you'd always play. Have you ever played the single-player version with 4 people? Where you
on tennis?
Yeah, you're playing against yourself.
Oh, yeah, you're just hitting right back and forth.
You're comparing both for each team.
I just do this the whole time.
Yeah,
I just shake my hand, and it's just like...
Yeah, exactly. Back and forth. It's like the net battles. It's so fun. But hey, shout out to them for bringing it back. That should be legendary. I might have to get a Switch for now, just to play Nintendo Sports.
I think my roommate has one, so I'll see if we can get.
Lucky.
Also, Lego Star Wars is coming on to the Switch, so that might be the reason I get a Switch. But who knows?
Ooh, that's gonna be
play
fun.
Lego Star Wars?
I haven't played a bunch of the Lego games. I would totally be down to now.
Missing out.
Yeah, my roommate or my teammates that I've spent time with, they have, I believe, a couple. So I'm sure that I would definitely go over there and play some.
Play on the bus rides.
We played Smash though. We played some
Smash. Bros is fun.
Yeah,
Smash
I'm not totally experienced and a good Smash player, but Smash is fun. It's really fun. But
Mac was my guy.
Yeah.
Mac and what is it? Icarus. Those two on the Wii U.
Yeah,
I was clap everybody.
Oh yeah, but. Yeah, anyway, me and Joe are going to go play some video games now as we finish up this episode. Thank you for listening in. Don't forget to subscribe. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you listen to these podcasts on, and maybe even including YouTube for our best bits and more. We'll have the coverage and everything, all the fun stuff. Hey, maybe you'll hear a conversation from today on there. We'll see. You never know.
Take care, everybody.